Make sure to check out my Covey account, link down in the description. And check out my other series, Modern Classics and TV Treasures.
His name is Henry. He's all about those classics. Dust off the old ones. And
Can't be done, I tell you. Can't be done.
He finds some goodies. And finds you some baddies. And reviews ones. Folks from forgot. His name is Henry. He's over the mustache. 1 year century reviews are here. His name is Henry. He's over the mustache. 20th century reviews are here. 20th century reviews are here.
Hello, I'm Henry R. Mockingbird, your host with the mustache. And last year, I reviewed The Maltese Falcon and The Man Who Knew Too Much. Both films fall under the crime genre, with one of them being a film noir and the other one being a thriller. Well, today, I am going to review another film that goes into that category, the gangster film, starting with Public Enemy. No, not that one. Yeah, that one. This is Public Enemy. Two young Chicago hoodlums rise up from their poverty and slum life and grow up to be both criminals, bootleggers, and straight-up killers. But with their street notoriety and their newfound wealth gets them attention from both the cops and other rival gangs. But despite his criminal reputation, Tom still finds the time to spend with his family until revenge ends up pulling him back into the criminal world. I'm going to spoil the ending to this movie, so if you want the ending unspoiled, skip to this time code.
What the hell is that?
Okay. Mike opens the door with Tom dressed up like a mummy, bloodied and shot. He falls to the ground, and the movie pretty much just ends. Wow. Talk about a WTF ending. Despite whatever the hell that ending was, what do I think of this movie? Well, I like it. This is the prime example of a gangster film. The film was directed by William A. Wellman, who also directed Wings from 1927, which, if you've seen my 50th episode, was one of the first movies to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. He also directed the very first version of A Star is Born, Tarzan Escapes, and Call of the Wild starring Clark Gable. And the film was based on an unpublished story called Beer and Blood, written by John Bright and Hubert Glassman, and was inspired by Al Capone and the crimes he committed in Chicago. The head of Warner Brothers at the time, Jack L. Warner, got William Wellman to direct the film. And the main character, Tom Powers, was going to be played by Edward Woods, who's probably best known for Dinner at 8 and Tarzan the Fearless, but the role ended up going to James Cagney. And the part of Tom's girlfriend was originally intended for Louise Brooks, who had already worked with the director on the film Beggars of Life. But she pretty much turned down the role. A character was written for her in mind called Bess, but this character would never materialize in the final product. Louise Brooks later stated that she hated working for Hollywood. Her autobiographer would later quote that her turning down the role would mark the end of her career. So the part ended up going to Jane Harlow. The movie was also the beginning of the trend of Joan Blondell working alongside James Cagney, even though they had already worked together on a film called Sinner's Holiday. The Other Men's Women, Blonde Crazy, and He Was Her Man, and Footlight Parade, which gave us this gem.
Can't be done, I tell you. Can't be done.
Filming began in January to February of 1931, while James Cagney was working alongside Edward G. Robinson and Smart Money, and he had just finished his breakout role with Little Caesar. There were problems on the set, like during the scene and where James Cagney is ducking from a bunch of guys shooting at him, they used real-life ammunition, which was standard practice at the time. And during the scene where Mike punched Tom in the face, the actor punched Cagney so hard he knocked his teeth out. Cagney would later remark saying that the actor did his job too well. Despite all of that, the movie did get mixed to positive reviews upon its release, but was nominated for several Academy Awards, including Best Story, but ended up losing to The Dawn Patrol. The film even got a part at the Great Movie Ride at Disney MGM Studios in Orlando.
Scene of such classic gangster films as The Public Enemy, starring the great James Cagney.
Where's Buddy Nose? Buddy Nose, read it. You better let her go for a while. And he's
What you will about that ride, but at least it lasted longer than all the classic Universal rides at Universal Studios in Orlando. Was referenced on The Sopranos, and it even has gained a place in the National Film Registration in the Library of Congress. When Tommy is getting his revenge, there's a scene where Tommy is in the dead of night standing in the rain. And it's shot so beautifully. Take notes, modern Hollywood. This is how you shoot a scene at night. When he comes out, he's pretty much bloodied in the head. No, seriously, there's a part where he's pretty much falling apart and you see blood on his head. I know that's not such a big deal, but you couldn't get away with that later. Like in later gangster movies, like Roaring Twenties, they couldn't show so much as a bullet wound in that movie. Open the film with a quote before going to our two main characters, Tom and Matt, as kids. And I know what you're probably thinking. Tom and Matt as kids look nothing like they do as adults. Well, that's probably because when the recast happened, they didn't really reshoot these scenes. That's why the kid versions of these characters look nothing like their adult counterparts. Anyways, they go stealing in a mall and get chased by the mall cops. And they go up an escalator and slide down an escalator in a scene that Stranger Things must have ripped off. We see Matt and Tom years later as adults, and let's talk about these two, starting with Tom. Tom is the perfect example of a fall from grace, a person who had humanity but loses it. He starts the film off as a petty thief, a crook. The only person who sees any good in him is his brother, but even later he sees that he's fallen off the rails. Tom goes from being a petty thief to a criminal to a cold-blooded killer who's willing to break the law to get what he wants. And I got to applaud this movie for actually having such an unlikable character. They give you no good reason to like this guy. At least with other gangster films, like, let's say, Little Caesar, even though he's a psychopath and right on the edge, he literally cracks when he has to kill his best friend. He loves the dude. Caesar can't bring himself to kill his best friend. Not Tom, though. Tom relishes, even enjoys killing. Not only does he get a sick enjoyment out of killing people or anything, he also lies to his mother and treats his girlfriend like dirt. His girlfriend, whose name is Kitty, and yes, that's her name, tries to be the best she can for him, but all he does is treats her like crap. And Kitty is played by Mae Clark, who also played the bride of Dr. Frankenstein and was also in The Penguin Pool Murderer, which, if you remember, gave us this line.
What's good looks got to do with romance?
Young man, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror?
Sure, have you?
I was in hopes you wouldn't bring that up.
He is such a colossal a-hole. You can't help but wonder why she stuck around with him for so long. I mean, he literally shoves a grapefruit in her face at breakfast.
And you...
Apparently, the reason why this scene is in the movie is because the director had a pretty bad time with his wife at the time. They would constantly argue to the point where they weren't even talking to each other. He wanted to shove a grapefruit in her face just to get a reaction out of him. And that's the reason why this scene is in the film, because he had to get something out of his system. This scene was so infamous, it was later parodied in the film 1, 2, 3. But going back to him, he pretty much dumps her ass and goes for another girl who goes by the name of Gwen Allen, played by Jane Harlow. And all she sees in him is the bad boy, and not really much else. Whereas his other girlfriend, Kitty, sees the good in him. Next up, let's talk about his best friend, Matt. And of the two, he's probably the most sympathetic, even though he's pretty much doing the same stuff that Tom is doing. We sympathize with him because he's getting married to Joan Blondell's character, who actually loves him. And they were going to have a happy life together until he got shot. And Tom doesn't even so much as mourn him. I mean, that's kind of messed up given how they were buddies. I mean, they were pals ever since they were kids. Hell, they got their first gun together, which kind of reminds me of a story Sal would tell me.
I'm Sal, your friendly neighborhood gangster. And I got a bit of a story for you to tell. You see, I've got some ewes. And the other day, while I was bringing these ewes in, I was pretty much telling them I gave them their first gun. And I told them. And they did not know how to shoot the damn thing. So shoots them. And they was like, we was in a mafia. We was in the gang. You have to learn how to shoot them with the gun. And the kids was like, we don't know how to shoot the gun. And I was like, shoots them with the gun. And they was like, how am I going to take them down? And I was like, shoots them with the doggone gun. Me's losing me stinking mind here. You see what I mean? You gotta shoot them with the gun. It isn't a simple task to shoot them with the doggone gun. Me's losing me mind here. I'm losing my doggone mind here. This is so crummy. Me can't take it. So I told them, forget about it, kid.
And then there's Tom and Matt's second boss, Patty Ryan, who even though he's a gangster, he always has their best interest in mind. He has all the hallmarks of a gangster. He smokes, he drinks, he spits, and he eats. He's a pretty fun character, all things considered. He introduces them to Nails Nathan, who kind of looks like Sal's rival. I can't help but wonder what his story on this guy would be like.
Nails Nathan. Me good old rival, you know what I mean? I hated the punk. This dude caused me nothing but trouble. He stole me Goyle, and then he pretty much stole half my gang members, and then nothing, and left me with nothing. So when he got bumped off, Mies gets me revenge, and I took half his gang. Take that, you yellow belly palooka.
The first problem I have with this movie is that Nails Nathan is set up as a pretty cool villain, only for the movie to pretty much kill him off in the most anticlimactic and stupid way by having him be killed by his whores.
That was really stupid.
Seriously, what the hey? Why would you set up such a cool villain only to kill him off? Also, certain characters that pretty much disappear towards the end of the movie and are never mentioned at all. But with the film getting a re-release in 1941, the Hays Code had to poke their nose in where it didn't belong and started censoring scenes. Like, there's a scene where Tom is getting measured for a new suit, and the Hays Code was so homophobic, they actually thought that he looked gay. That's right, the Hays Code were homophobic towards a tailor. That is just sad. And then there's another scene that was cut where Joan Blondell's character is bringing Matt breakfast in bed. The only reason that this scene was probably cut was because they're sharing the same bed. Can't have a man and a woman share the same bed now, can we? Another scene that got cut was when Patty's girl tries to seduce Tom, even though they literally do not show anything. Thankfully, these scenes were restored in the 1970s version, and that's the version that is commonly known today. This movie is utterly fantastic. If you want an introduction to the gangster genre, I highly recommend it. 5 gold stars. Well, until the next review, I'm Henry Mockingbird, your host with the mustache. And what do I have next on my review schedule? Sorry, folks. I'm going for 2.